Welcome back to the Club Junkie podcast. And it's a little late going up Thursday. I'm recording this Thursday morning, and I totally lost track of time on Wednesday night. So I was doing questions with you guys. Totally forgot to record the podcast. So anyway, before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know it's brought to you by Team Titleist. We're excited to share with you guys exclusive opportunities from Titleist. But to be a part of them, you have to join Team Titleist. Team Titleist gives you access to opportunities like prototype testing, special events, limited edition gear from Titleist, and so much more. Sign up and join us on Team Titleist at www.titleist.com/Team Titleist. Just one word, Team Titleist. It's more than just kind of a name. It's a community of golfers just like us, gear fanatics, into all this tech and all the new products. And it connects us to product experts. There's hosting at events, and it provides opportunities like prototype golf ball testing. You've seen the white boxes out on tour. You've seen some people post on social media. All that stuff, testing new Pro V1s, new balls, whatever it is, it's all part of Team Titleist. So check out Team Titleist at titleist.com/Team Titleist. So welcome back. I know it's late going up. Like I said, I was sitting there last night, and I got home and asked everybody kind of what we should do. Everybody said, let's answer some questions, did some questions. Woke up this morning and realized that I didn't record my podcast. So we're recording this morning, and it'll be a little late going up, but I think that'll be all right. So hopefully everybody's having a good week. I've tried out, I've got out, played a little golf. It's been cold. I try to get out, do my little 3-swing challenge, which is also a time I use to test new products and stuff. And I've been getting out early, and there's a course that I go to. It's called, Golden Hawk up in not northern part of Michigan, but it's up 94 on the kind of more the east side of the state. And the course is not great, but I can get out there and be the only one out there, be the first guy out there, and get to do my own thing. So it's a little chilly. I've got to bundle up a little bit more, but I've been able to do that, and it's been pretty good. So hopefully I can get a few more rounds in. It's supposed to get a little nicer this weekend, so I don't know, how much golf I'll get in. I got some stuff that I need to do around the house. My daughter's been bugging me to put up the Halloween decorations because our neighbor already has their whole yard decorated, so we're way behind. We're not looking good. So I'm going to have to do that. And then, but before I do that, I went out to do it the other night, and I got to replace like the outside socket. Like the GFI is just dead. Like the buttons don't work, nothing, no electricity. So that was a bummer. So I tried to impress her while she was sleeping. She'd wake up, see all the inflatable Mickey Minnie Halloween stuff that we have, and not gonna happen. So I got to do that. I got to get some more golf in because the season is rapidly going away, which is a bummer. So thankfully, I will go out and go to like Southern California, stuff like that, get some golf in here and there, get some swings in, but it won't be playing around here in a few months or so. But today's episode, we're going to jump into two brand new drivers, and two drivers that people are pretty excited about, which is pretty cool because I think they are vastly improved from previous years or previous generations. I think this is going to be a big year for Tour Edge and the Tour Edge Exotics 725 line. So 725, of course, 2025. There was no C724, but there was a 723. So they kind of went a 2-year cycle going into here. I guess they just had some stuff they wanted to get in. It wasn't ready for 24, and so they kind of ran that line. And then the 25 stuff just came out. So super impressive. They got two drivers like they usually do. They've got the E series, which is the more forgiving, bigger, more forgiving head, and then they have got the C series, which is going to be the lower launch, lower spin. A little bit more adjustability for the slightly better player. Player wants that. The big story on the E series is it is 10K, so 10K MOI, and 10K MOI is of course the measurement of MOI from a horizontal position and a vertical position. So add those two up, and they will be 10K or over, which is been kind of a hot thing. I know Ping was kind of the first one to jump out with that, and then we saw the same thing, 10K from TaylorMade, and then we saw it also from PXG. So we've got a couple 10Ks out there. And then there's some other, I think Callaway said, there's wasn't necessarily 10K, but they were, the max is pretty darn forgiving and puts it up against anything. So forgiveness is definitely a big part of the story with drivers recently. But these ones here, I love, what they did. The top crown is totally new. It's got this matte carbon on the top. The Ridgeback is now called the Ridgeback 360s. They moved a lot of that stability of the head to the outside of it. One, to, of course, stabilize the head. control the flex of it, but also that moves more weight to the outside perimeter. So they get, again, more stability. And the top, from a look standpoint, is so much cleaner. You don't have that black line just running down the middle. And when you look at these two new heads, I mean, they look just really, really classic, really traditional. And I think a lot of players are going to look at this and really like it. Still back, 3D diamond face, which is all brand new for both models here. It's been through a few iterations over the years, but this one here is now the 3D diamond face, and it's a totally 3D dimensional. So behind here, if you look on it, there's a bunch of like kind of diamonds milled into it, or little squares diamonds that are milled into it, and basically, creating a wider kind of sweet spot, more ball speed on those mishits. So it is definitely technology they've had for a little while, and they just kind of revise it every year. And then this year they did a big thing with adding a lot of adjustability. So both of them have rear weights that are adjustable for draw, fade, and neutral. And then the C series, you can take the heavy weight and either push it forward for a little bit lower spin, maybe slightly lower flight, or you can move it back and add a little bit spin, or add a little bit of height. So the C's got a 15 and a 5. I was hitting it with the 15 back, the weight back. That's just the way I always kind of hit everything. And then there's just the movable weight in the back for the E series, but that thing is an 18 gram weight in the back there. So pretty darn heavy. Should be able to kind of adjust that right and left, that fade bias, and the feel of the driver. I kind of kept it in neutral over there on both these, and I just didn't have a whole lot of time to switch them out and mess around with them, but kept them both in neutral as I hit them. But overall, I can say, from a looks perspective, as soon as I opened the box, I was really, really impressed with the look of these things. I think Tour Edge did a great job. There's no real other colors on the bottom. I mean, it's basically black and a little bit of kind of this like silver gray. It's even hard to tell, maybe even look white, but it's kind of like a silver gray in the markings, and that's it. There's no crazy colors, no blues, no reds, no anything else. They just kind of went all, all in on the kind of stealthy, basic look, and I think it's going to pay off. I think it looks really, really good. And then also the shaping. I mean, the E series is a little stretched out. It's a little triangular back here at the back of it, but overall the shape is pretty traditional, really good looking. The interesting thing, this is a 10.5 head, and if you see it at address, which I know on YouTube here you can't really pull it off or whatever, but you don't see much of the face. If you're somebody who doesn't like to see loft or doesn't like to see face, the face on a driver, both these here, you do not see much of the face. Like the 9-degree head for the C series is a 9-degree head, and I mean it to me looks like a 6-degree head. It just, you don't see much of the face on it, and for players who like that, it definitely is gonna fit your eye. But you can see the C series a little more rounded off, a little more compact, not quite as stretched out. And yeah, they both face depth wise are pretty similar. Not a huge difference between the two. I would say they're pretty much equal. I need to measure them with some calipers and see. The E series a little bit stretched out from heel to toe compared to the C. The C is a little bit more compact, but overall they look really, really good. And yeah, I think Tour Edge did a really nice job with these. So if you've seen the 3-swing challenge, I already did the 3-swing challenge with the E series, so the E725. I did the 3-swing challenge. I was super impressed with it. So we'll start off talking with that one. I will admit that between these two, I did not hit the C really, really well. I had it on the course. I hit it okay, and then, brought it home to kind of to get some numbers on it. And yeah, I just didn't hit it well. And I'm not making an excuse. It's just what I do is when there's drivers like that I don't see a lot of loft on. I'm not a high ball hitter. I hit the ball pretty flat. I hit the ball, I always add loft. I'm a 10.5 guy, maybe even 11. I've had some 12s in the bag that I got fit into. So I'm typically a higher lofted driver player, and seeing the C725 and with any driver that has very little loft, I've done it with Titleist drivers, whoever, ones that I see very little loft, like 9, 8, whatever degree heads, I psychologically just like kind of forward press the club, and I basically just manipulate things differently. I don't like looking at it. It messes with my head, and I feel like I change my swing up when I hit those drivers. So my numbers for that one are not quite as good as I think they would be had I had like a 10.5 head and all that. But I basically went through and got rid of a lot of really bad shots on there to get you the best numbers I can get on that one. So I'll give you that, if you want to call it an excuse, whatever. That's fine, but it's not meant to be excused. Just telling you, literally, that's what happens when I have super low lofted drivers. So, like this year, I had a 9-degree, Cobra Dark Speed LS head. Same thing. I just never really hit it that well. I bumped it up to 10, all that stuff. Still never hit it well. So C series did the same thing. I bumped it up to 10 with the adapter and played it as like kind of a 10-degree head and all that. But again, that type of stuff, it's so, and that's why I'm a mental midget. Like I don't. When it comes to golf, there's things that I'm just a mental midget about and things I do stupidly out on the course, and that just proves why. So anyway, but we'll start with the E-Series. And the E-Series here, honestly, I didn't think this was going to be as good as it was. I'll be honest with you. I kind of had a low bar for this one. I thought it was going to be, pretty forgiving, pretty spinny, whatever. And honestly, super impressed with it. I had this on the course. The first time I swung it was during 3-Swing Challenge. I took it out there and hit it. And then I honestly was really impressed. I basically hit 2 drivers on every hole because I wanted to hit both. But I wanted to hit this and had it out there and played really, really well. Really impressed with how forgiving this head is. It is really easy to hit. They've definitely improved sound and feel. So the sound on it, really actually more muted than I thought. And I think adding this bigger carbon crown and having the weight big sliding weight track in the back, and there's some internal, I guess, like ribbing or fins in there as well to kind of help with the sound. And the sound on it is really good. It's definitely more muted than I thought. Probably the quietest driver that Tour Edge has made to date, but really good sound. There's some metallic to it, but it's pretty low pitched. And whether you hit it dead center or you miss it, the sound doesn't fluctuate a ton. I mean, you do get, with any club, when you miss it, you get it off the toe, a little off the heel, whatever, you get a different sound, and that's just the nature of the beast, and it's kind of part of the responsiveness of the head. Like, you kind of know, oh, that sound along with, like, the vibration, the feel, I hit it off the toe, or I hit it low heel, or I hit it, low on the face or high on the face, or whatever it was. And this one here does a really good job, but it doesn't get crazy. Like, when you hit it dead center, it's got this, lower tone metallic sound to it, and much quieter than I thought. And then when you hit it, off the toe, off the heel, a little low, whatever, it does change, but it doesn't get like super tingy. It doesn't get like tin canny. It doesn't do any of that. It really does stay muted the whole time. So the sound on it, really, really good. Feel is solid. When you hit it in the center, you can kind of feel the face flex. You can feel that ball compress off the face, excuse me, and really go. And, you get a little bit, those misses, you get a little bit of vibration to your hands, but it's not much. It feels pretty good. You don't get anything like rattling or sting in your hands or anything like that. But overall, sound and feel, really, really impressed with the E725. I thought whatever they did in terms of those internal ribs and all that stuff to work with the weight track, they've got it pretty much sounding pretty good. And I know sound and feel subjective. What I like the sound and feel of, you may not like the sound and feel of, so it kind of depends. But I think compared to the 723 stuff and even the 720, was it 22 or 21 stuff, I think this thing sounds and feels really, really good. So out of the course, the big thing is it is really forgiving and really straight. I mean, it's hard to say anything other than that. The first swing, I basically hit this ball that started out on the right side of the fairway and had the most gentle, baby draw back a few yards, landed in the fairway, and that was it. And I was like, wow, it was pretty good. It was a good swing, all that. And that was pretty much the story of the whole day. The ball started for me out on just a slightly righter line than I thought. And again, I'm a big drawer of the ball, so I kind of plan for that ball to come back a good amount. And honestly, it was basically like a 5, maybe 10-yard draw at the most on basically every shot. And like I said, started out kind of the right side, generally came back. Most of the balls landed in the fairway, a couple didn't, but I hit a decent amount of fairways with this thing. But I was really surprised that, one, it started out kind of on this, slightly center to slightly right line, and then had such minimal draw for a guy who plans for that and plays a decent amount of draw there. It was so minimal. I mean, the amount of movement the ball had on it was really, really reduced. And like other 10K drivers, I mean, the thing just goes straight. It goes straight. It's extremely stable. When you hit it dead center, the ball jumps off the face and really goes. When you hit it, kind of high toe, which has kind of been a lot of my miss lately, the ball just doesn't snap hook. It doesn't go hard. The thing has enough loft and a little bit of spin, keeps the ball in the air, and it honestly goes really, really straight. A little bit kind of more of a slightly higher ball flight. I know somebody asked me kind of compared to say Ping or the QI10, which are both 10K heads. For me, the QI10 was kind of a high launcher. I had a 9-degree head in that, and the Ping was a little bit flatter. I think this comes out a little bit kind of in between the two, but I'll say it's closer to the QI10 for me, a little bit higher launching. The spin wasn't crazy. For me, it worked out well. I wouldn't call it a crazy low spin head, but the flight is not super, super high, but I would call it mid-high trajectory, but easy to get in the air, easy to keep in the air if you mishit it. Like I said, for me, kind of getting a little bit kind of steeper, hitting it off the toe. That shot for me comes out flat and goes left. This one stayed up in the air and had way less of a draw to it than I've had with other drivers. So extremely straight. I probably drove the ball for a brand new driver thrown in the bag. I probably drove the ball better than most of the drivers, other than maybe Mizuno ST Max. I pretty much drove the ball better than everything else for the first shot out. But hit it really well, and honestly, really impressed. I mean, shots low heel. I know I hit one low heel kind of near the end. I thought it was just going to kind of spin up and fall out of the sky, right into the rough. And again, made the right side of the fairway. The ball did climb a little bit, but it wasn't anything crazy. When playing with the wind wasn't making the ball kind of move a lot. You never saw any rise in it. You didn't see big changes in curvature for for me, I don't see a fade, but any big curvatures in my draw or anything like that with the wind to it. So spin wise, it doesn't get crazy high spin, and I'll kind of give you the number that I got hitting it at home in my net as well. But out on the course, definitely long. I mean, it was out there. I mean, shots that I hit off the toe a little bit, that drew back in, hit the fairway, I'd walk out, and I was actually kind of impressed with how far some of those shots went, because I didn't hit them well, and I expected the ball to kind of be 10, 15 yards back compared to where it was. And honestly, the balls were up, near the 100-yard marker, or inside the 100-yard marker on some of the short par fours that I just didn't expect to get there, and expected to be back closer to the 150, and I wasn't. So ball speed on miss hits, really, really good. Center strikes, really solid. And yeah, it's overall just a really stable head. I didn't mess around with, shifting the weights too much. I haven't had time to get that many swings in on it. But I liked it so much, I did throw the all-fit adapter in here, an all-fit screw. So went through and had some other shafts in there. I kind of hit it the most with the new Graphite Design Tour AD GC, kind of mid-launch, low-spin shaft. And that combo has worked out really, really well. Like I said, trajectory-wise, been mid-high, spin's been fairly low, and stability on those mishits has been really solid. But really forgiving. I mean, I would say against the other 10K drivers, this thing is right up there in terms of how straight it goes. It really is. And I think overall it's going to perform really, really close. I think it's going to hang in there with everything. I think that's the big question that people ask basically about Tour Edge is, do they hang with the big boys? Do they hang with all the big name drivers and all that? And they really do. And I think this one here is really going to impress a lot of people. And I think if you give it a shot, it is definitely going to show that it can do it. It can really play. So I will say the one knock is, if you have to go up in loft, it definitely the face closes a little bit, which is kind of a bummer. That I found more in the C series. I didn't really have to raise this one, but the way they did kind of this nice. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, which if you want to search Club Junkie, you can. The way they kind of painted the top line, so the top line actually, the paint doesn't start till back a little bit further. It doesn't actually hit where the curve, where the top goes into the face. There's a little bit of space where there, which is nice because the way they painted it, it actually makes the club head look a little bit more square. Even though it might be sitting a touch shut, the way that paint goes through, it actually looks a little more square to slightly even open depending on the setting. And it's actually kind of nice. I like that they did that because typically the Tour Edge stuff has had kind of a more straighter top line edge, the way they painted it. And it was much easier for it to look shut. This here, I think, will take away some of some of those issues where it's just maybe a degree or two kind of painted open. And I think that's going to make a big difference in how this thing looks at address. So, so the E-Series, like I said, really, really impressed, really stable, really good on mishits. So for this thing, when I brought it home, basically hit it with the Tour AD GC 6X, which I know everybody, you should play an X. It's fine. So I did that, came back, hit it back on the launch monitor here, and excuse me, for launch I averaged 12.2, so definitely a little bit higher than some of the other drivers I've hit, but 12.2 for me is really, really good. I mean, I'm trying to get the ball up a little bit higher. Spin was 6,700 or 6,000 or 6,000 2,673. If it was 6,000, we'd have some big problems. But 2,673. And the nice thing about that number is it didn't fluctuate terribly. I saw a few that kind of got a little bit over 3 when I kind of low heeled it and got it up there, and kind of left it out right. I don't really hit a fade, but kind of left it out to the right. And I could get a few that were, up near or just, just at 3,000. But everything else, the nice thing too was when I hit it off the toe, and I did hit a kind of a little harder hook with it, that number didn't drop down to like 1,900, 1,800. Like it kept it in like the 22 type range. And that's pretty good because that helps me get a little more distance out of that shot. It definitely keeps it in the air. And I get that ball a little bit further down. So 2673 for the spin. And then ball speed 146.4. I thought it was really consistent too. I mean, the drop off between really good shots and poor shots was not huge. I mean, always you're going to see some drop, but even some really poor shots that I missed, I thought fairly far on the toe, kept ball speed in the 140s, which for me is good when you're missing it way out there and the smash factor is dropping. But really solid there at 146.4, and then my carry from hitting balls was 236.8. So pretty good for me, I would say. Those are really solid numbers. For me, I know, other people hit it a lot further, but, and the directional thing, I mean, the ball, again, starting on just a slightly more right line and then, drawing back. I think with me, I just needed to trust, like, you don't have to aim it right, just aim it down the center and hit it and you're all right. But that will come. So definitely one that's going to stay in the rotation. Definitely going to hit some more shots with this thing and definitely try a few more shafts and stuff like that as the year goes on. But the E725 is really solid. So C725 is, again, the lower spin, kind of like, geared towards the player wants a little lower launch, a little lower spin, maybe slightly more skilled player. Definitely a little different in terms of shots. But interesting thing enough, not crazy unforgiving. I think a lot of times you look at some of these, lower spin type drivers and you kind of get worried about, oh, can I hit it? What happens when I do miss hit it? And honestly, the C725 is pretty good. I think it's a good mix between being pretty low spin and not being super demanding in terms of having to hit it, perfectly every time. Like when I was out doing 3-swing challenge, I had both these out for the first time ever. And yes, I definitely hit the E725 better. Like if you were to kind of not even do a fitting, but just walk, you'd be like, well, that's the driver for you. But the C725, like I said, had the heavyweight back in the neutral position, lightweight forward. And honestly, I was still, with the 90-degree head, when I hit it good, I was able to elevate it. It didn't go near as high. I mean, you can definitely tell the window difference between the two, between the E7, the E, and the C. It's definitely a different window. I'm going to call this one mid. I won't quite call it mid-low because, again, this is a 90-degree head versus a 10.5, but definitely a different window when you hit this. Shots that I kind of hit, with the E that had this gentle, 5-yard draw to it, this probably had a little bit bigger. I'm talking like 15 yards, but it was actually tighter than I thought. I mean, this Golden Hawk course is actually, a lot of the holes are super tight in terms of driving, and some of them, just to hit the fairway is a huge plus. And I wasn't like hitting balls way left and missing the fairways there. I was still actually getting the ball in the fairway fairly well. For this, it actually started on kind of a similar line to the E. It started off just a little bit right. It just had a little more curvature to the ball. So the miss on the toe, all that, I think if it was something where had a little more, have a little more time with it, you can kind of dial it in. I think that takes away some of that. But the forgiveness there is still there. I mean, you can still miss it. You don't have to hit a dead center. When you do hit a dead center, it does go. It comes out in this piercing, kind of penetrating flight. On the 18th hole there, I just nuked one with that, just hit it dead center, and just bombed it down the right side of the fairway. It was really good. I mean, again, draw-wise, there was just a little bit to it, but that was the best ball I hit, and it was just a little bit longer than the E, because I had a pretty good ball with the E as well, and that was just on the left side of the fairway, and this was probably a few yards in front of it. But this was more demanding for me just because of the loft. I kind of had to almost hit up on it to get it up in the air a little bit easier. And I moved it into the 10-degree setting, back to the 9, kind of did both, but, definitely a lower launching a club there. Spin, I did notice that, when I did really miss it off the toe and had that slight, a little bit bigger hook to it, compared to the E, it was a little bit shorter. And I think that just all comes down to not as much loft and not as much spin. So it didn't hold that shot up in the air for me as well. But if you're a player who kind of hits it fairly straight or maybe has just a little bit of a fade, I think the slightly lower spin on this could help you, and you could see slightly longer shots on your miss hit. But dead center shots, really far. Stuff off the heel in terms of fades and all that for me, which again, that doesn't happen very often, but those shots there carried pretty well, a little bit farther than I would expect. Stuff off the toe, there was a little bit of a drop. And again, I think it's just because it doesn't, the spin there just is a little bit lower than the E series. But overall shots really, really good. Good. Similar to this, the E series, mine started off just a hair right in terms of the starting line. Nothing crazy, but if you were even like dead centered on the fairway, it was just start off maybe just a hair of the right side of the fairway, and then that ball would either, for me, draw back, or if I hit it dead straight, it would just be, straight on the right side of the fairway or slightly into the rough. But definitely a little less forgiving, definitely more curvature on the ball, flatter, more penetrating ball flight. Definitely got some roll on some shots out there as morning got later and the dew kind of took off. Definitely saw some balls that had some good roll to it. And overall with it, really, really good performer. Sound and feel a little bit different than the E series. I thought the E series was a little bit more muted. I think this is just a little bit louder, especially dead center. Dead center, I felt like this had just a louder, a little bit more booming sound. And then the miss hits were actually slightly more muted compared to those center shots. But overall, a little bit louder than the E series and just a little bit more higher pitched and metallic than the E. And now, granted, it's got different stuff. Like the bottom has this weight track. It's got this power channel. Still has the weight in the back. So it's got a little different stuff going on. So I'm not shocked they sound a little different. But this is just a hair louder. And it's not offensive in any way in terms of loudness. But it definitely is a little bit louder, a little bit more metallic than the E series when I was out on the course with it. So again, really solid driver. I think ball speed's on it really, really good. I think it definitely hangs with the big guys. And I think for that player looking for something, a little lower, a little more penetrating, this ball is great. This thing's great. And like I said, loft-wise, this thing, you almost see no loft at impact or at address. It's just like top line, and that's it. And they did the same thing with this one here as well, where they kind of painted that top line with the matte paint that starts just a little bit back from the face. And again, I think that makes it look really, really good and gives it, a slightly more square look at address. So really like the C. I'd like to hit it in a 10.5 and see the comparisons. It would definitely make a huge improvement, but I think the E for my game is definitely way, way better. That a little bit of spin, a little bit of added height makes a huge difference, but the C is really good as well. And I think for that player who wants something a little bit more adjustable, they can dial it into their swing, their game. I think this is a great, great option. And it is a really solid driver that does hang with everything else out there. So launch on this one, when I brought it back home, hit it in my net. The launch on for 9.8. And I'm going to take blame for some of that because I did hit a lot of lower shots and they kind of were, to the left a little bit more. And again, psychologically, when I see no loft, no face, I tend to do that. So 9.8 there, spin 2,298 was the spin. So about 400 RPM different between the two. And I think that, if you took dead square shots, it might be a little tighter than that, but about 400 RPM difference. So 2,298. And then ball speed 145.2, a little bit slower only because I think I was hitting it a little bit more off the toe. If you took all the shots out there and you kind of narrowed them down and looked at impact position, I hit more off the toe with the C series than I did with the E. With the center shots, and you looked at those, the ball speeds were pretty much identical. So this was just a few more misses here because I just didn't hit it as well as the E series. And then carry was 231.3. And that one there, the really good ones were as long or whatever as the E series, maybe just even a hair longer. But I did hit a few that, like I said, were more left. Didn't have the carry, would have had a ton of roll, but they just didn't have the height and the carry to go as far. So a little bit lower there, but that's why they make different drivers. Certain drivers are going to work for players, certain drivers are going to work better, or certain drivers are going to work better or worse for players. So those are the new tour-edge exotics, the E725, the C725. Again, really, really solid. I think tour-edge is bringing some real heat for 2025. So I think these will be definitely bigger and better than the previous ones. I think more players, will try them. And honestly, if you have the ability, try them. I think you'll be really impressed with what they can do. And honestly, the E series for sure, if you're looking for forgiveness, it is definitely one out there. And I think, price wise, I want to say that they're a little bit cheaper than, they're $399. So compared to some other drivers out there, $200 less, and the performance is really, really solid. So if you go to touredge.com, you can check out all the new exotics. I've got the fairway woods as well. I'm going to do another show on those because I had the C out there, but I didn't have the E. So I'm going to take, get both those up against each other as well. But so far, the C is really, really solid. I really like it. So But yeah, these two really, really solid drivers. If you haven't tried out Tour Edge in a while, definitely go try out the new 725 series, whether it's C or E. I think you're going to be really impressed. So those are both those, and that is the show for today. So hopefully you guys have a good weekend planned. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe. If you don't know it's on YouTube, hey, you can watch me sit at a desk. Just search Club Junkie or Golf WRX Radio, wherever you're listening to the podcast. If you could like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. And then also, if you want to see more, follow me on Instagram at Club Junkie Pod. We'd like to do Q&As, all sorts of fun stuff. So follow me there. And yeah, that's what I've got for today. So hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy it. Hopefully you get out and play some golf. And we'll check back next week, talk about some more gear.